Time for another weekly market analysis. This is for week number 20. That's May 15th through the 19th. Here we go. Let's start off with the S&P 500 ETF. That's SPY is the ticker symbol, the largest equity ETF market in the world. Kick it off with the monthly chart. We can see that it is slightly, and I do mean just slightly, bullish, but really mainly uncommitted. What I mean by that is no major decisive action one way or the other. We can see that the range of the monthly chart, at least this month so far, has been somewhat narrow. And again, no major commitment from the buyers or sellers. So I'm saying slightly bullish. We do have some overhead bearish resistance or supply up ahead, starting about 425 all the way up to about 454, 455 range. So if price can get up there, I definitely think it's going to have a very difficult time breaking through that area, which would lead us to looking for shorting position or bearish positions if price can get up there. On the weekly chart, a little bit more going on here. Multiple returns into that resistance or supply area and higher lows usually means price will continue higher, but it's not guaranteed. I give it 60-40 bullish at best. Not great odds, but it's decent odds. So the location, that is bearish. We've been in this location many times, about that 410 to 420 range. It does have a bullish direction though. That's encouraging for the bulls. We do see higher highs and higher lows. So from that standpoint, the bulls are in control right now, and we'll see if they can continue to stay in control and break through this resistance. I will say this, though. I'm really monitoring this closely. There's a box pattern that's forming. It really already has formed. So there may be a reversal coming up here soon. So we'll have to really make sure that we monitor this carefully week by week and really day to day, in fact. And so what that box pattern is doing here is it's really just consolidating, constricting price movement. And when that happens, we know that an expansion happens next. So that will be an expansion upward or an expansion downward. We don't know which one of those will happen, but we do know one of those two will happen. We just have to be ready for it. So if it expands upward and rallies and goes higher, great. Then we'll use our bullish trading tactics for that. If price breaks to the downside and goes lower and expands down lower, then we will look for our bearish tactical trade setups. Either way, we're covered. So I put that on there just to make sure that you're aware of it and that you'll be ready for it if and when that happens. Now you can actually see it a little bit better of a visual of that on the daily chart. Here it is. So on the daily chart, you can see this bigger range that it's stuck in. So if you look at 403 to 417, that's the big range that it's stuck in. However, I've highlighted in the dark gray rectangle there, that's the smaller box within the bigger weekly box. So really you got a box within a box. And so in an example like that, we have this constriction, contraction of price going on right now the past several days. So that's forming that box pattern, and it's going to break out one direction or the other. We don't know which way it'll go. We don't really care which way it'll go. We'll be ready for it when it happens. So I put two scenarios on there. Option number one, if price breaks downward, so if it breaks out lower, if so, look to sell short the retracements in sell zone. So I highlighted that in the red circle there, about 404, 403 area there. We'll, of course, have to see what plays out, but that's just the general area of where a sell zone will likely form if price was to break downward. Now, if price rallies higher and breaks out of the box and breaks out of that weekly range and starts now heading higher, that's the blue line. So that's option number two. So price breaks out higher. If that happens, look to buy retracements in newly formed buy zones. Now, that'll probably be somewhere around the 415 to 418 range. That will likely be where the buy zones will form, the ones that will be buyable, but I'll update you as we go by. So if that happens, I'll definitely let you know. So just be aware. All right, so that's for the S&P 500. Before we get to the NASDAQ, if you want to download these slides, I'll put the link in the description below. It's free. You just click on the link, sign up, and you can download to your heart's content. All right, let's get to the NASDAQ. QQQ, the NASDAQ 100 ETF. On the monthly chart, we can see it's slightly bullish. The momentum now is moving a little slowly, but it's moving at least, so yay for the bulls. We do have some overhead resistance up there in that bearish location from about 342 to 368, 369 range, call it 370. So basically 340 to 370 is the range where the bears are hanging out. Right now, the bulls are meandering up closer and closer to where the bears are hanging out. They're just taking their sweet old time. So that's the monthly chart. Not a whole lot to write home about on that. On the weekly chart, we can see a little bit more detail now. We can see that price currently is right up into a bearish area, about that 325-ish range. It just recently broke out of that box pattern. That's that gray rectangle right there. So that is bullish. That's a really good sign for the bulls. And so it's breaking out right up into a bearish location. So we need to be aware of that. We do have overhead resistance. It is slightly bullish right now. The breakout's encouraging. That's good news for the bulls. So we also see higher highs and higher lows. So that's also a bullish factor. I did put on there a bullish area of support demand down there about the 292, 298 area. I don't think that's going to get hit anytime soon. So really for now, it's just a placeholder for if and when it actually gets down there. All right, on the daily chart, now this is where it gets interesting. There may not be a whole lot left in the tank here because really what's driving this rally is mainly a few big names that are leading the NASDAQ, the QQQ. And once they stop going higher, down goes the ship, all right? Because really that's what's going on right now. So that's what I'm saying. There might not be a whole lot left in the tank for this bullish move, this uptrend. There are, however, two buy zones worth considering. So the first one here, the bullish locations, are at about 322. The next one's down at 318 to right about 315 area. And so if price drops down to those could be buyable for us if they meet the tactical requirements. So option number one is if price rallies higher, which certainly is a viable option here. It certainly could go higher from where it's at now. The only problem with that is, remember the weekly chart, we have overhead resistance. So if it does go higher, it might not go a whole lot higher. You might have a little bit of a profit potential in that trade, just not a lot. And again, because only a few names are leading the charge here, it gets back to, is there really a whole lot of fuel left in the tank on this thing? Option number two, price drops down to about 322, support area, and then rally. So that could be a nice little buyable trade. And then the third option is if price drops down to that 318-ish area of support and then rallies higher. So either one of those bullish areas could be buyable for us. Again, we really got to match this up and pay close attention to the leaders of the market out there right now, because if only a few big heavyweights are leading the charge and nothing else is really moving, when those heavyweights start to get tired, they lose that bullish momentum from anticipation of big earnings and all that kind of stuff, and they start dropping down, everything else starts going down with it. So that's why if you are going to buy in these bullish areas, make sure it meets your strict criteria. Make sure you're following your trade plan. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. Don't take the trade. All right, stay tuned for weekly market updates. I'll see you back here next week. If you want to grab the free Trader's Resource Guide, head over to tradertactics.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you next week. Have a good one. God bless and good trading.